Coming up, authorities call off a search for a man who went over the Grand Falls in Joplin.
Was another record-breaking day temperature-wise in the 4 states. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And it's election season. That means an increase in damaged or stolen campaign signs.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment. But first, let's go to Michael Hayslip.
Just as anticipated, it was really last night. We didn't get the cool off. We knew we wouldn't. I mean, even without the cloud cover, we set a new warm low.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. So once again, we take where we bottomed out on June the 14th. We ended up precisely at 80 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport. The previous warm low was 79, set back in 1981.
So it didn't even drop below 80.
We did not even get into the 70s. And so once again, that's a record warm low. And I know that sounds confusing to say that, but that's for now June the 13th and June the 14th, back-to-back days. We haven't gotten any close to daily highs, but yeah, we keep on setting the warm lows. And there you go, Tanya. Even this morning, we never even got there. That's updated from this morning right there, 80s. Is as low as we've seen. Well, we do have 81 in Chanute, 75 in Monette and Cassville. That's can't beat that, that's for sure. 78 right now in Miami. And even without any wind advisories out there, it is already blustery, coming in at 15 to 20 miles an hour pre-sunrise. You know, we're actually void of any heat advisories, wind advisories, excessive heat warnings, the whole nine. We've got nothing, excuse me, showing up on the watches and warnings banner. Heat wave, though, it's still, even though the top of the dome is about right there yesterday, top of the dome is shifting. It's moving a whole lot of heat to the southeast, but once again, we find ourselves on the east side of that dividing line right there. So it's back into the 90s today, another abnormally warm one. Even though the humidity is going to go down just a tick, the wind is not going to help today. And so once again, we got to consider ourselves in the oppressive category for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, right up there by it. On the 7-day forecast, we're going to throw up a slight shot for some rain for tonight into tomorrow morning. But you'll notice when I say slight, about isolated and as quick as you can push through, not going to be anything sustained by any means. And then Friday, good storm system works up to the north of us. We'll be paying attention to that, though, to make sure it doesn't have any southerly drop to it and doesn't affect our Friday morning commute. Don't think it will, though, as our really next shot for scattered showers after that's going to be Saturday night. Look at that Saturday, 95. Yeah.
But I am seeing 70s as the lows for the rest of the week.
So I really do think that after tonight, and a big factor will be our wind beginning to calm down.
Okay.
Starting tomorrow, we'll roll more of 10 to 15 miles per hour sustained and gust about 25 to 30 instead of having 20 miles an hour just consistently throughout the day.
Okay. All right. Hopefully we get some relief soon. All right. Thanks, Michael. Authorities stopped their search for a man missing at the Grand Falls in Joplin. The search began shortly after 5 Tuesday afternoon. That's when authorities received a report that a man went over the falls and did not resurface. Reddings Mill and Neosho Water Rescue provided support in that area. And further downstream, Galena, Kansas Water Rescue entered the water near Shimmerhorn Park in Cherokee County. Joplin Fire Deputy Chief Andy Nimmo says they've called off the search for the night because the water is swift and dangerous. And they asked everyone to avoid the area. The search will resume later this morning under the direction of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Authorities capture an escaped inmate. The Berry County, Missouri Sheriff's Department has just reported authorities have captured Lance Stevens, the last of 3 men who broke out of the Berry County Jail earlier this month. Now, he was captured in San Antonio, Texas. Authorities had previously captured the other 2 escapees. Christopher Blevins was caught near Casper, Wyoming, and Matthew Crawford found in Springfield. Police in Aurora, Missouri investigate the death of a couple. A police chief says a neighbor got a call asking him to call 911 for help. And when officers arrived at the home in the 1642 Oak Drive at that address, they found the man and woman both dead from gunshot wounds. Police say there is no threat to the public. Missouri Governor Mike Parson signs a bill on property rights. The legislation deals with the seizure of private land for public projects. The measure will require farm owners to be paid at least 150% of their market value if their properties are taken through eminent domain. The law only applies to new projects. Expect to see a constitutional amendment known as Value Them Both on the ballot during the primary election in August. Crawford County Sheriff's Department says during campaign season, they get an increased number in calls for damaged and stolen signs. Committing these acts could lead to fines or jail time.
If you're going to steal a sign or deface it, and if you're looking at theft or criminal charges, you're going to get a court date, just like you would anything else. You have to appear at court. And then, between the county attorney and the judges, they're going to decide at some point in time if you're going to get a fine or what goes along with the consequences of doing that. And it's really up to them how they decide to do that.
Later in the show, our own Jalen Banks talks to a Pittsburgh resident who's been a victim of sign theft. In the war in Ukraine, the situation is turning dire in a critical city in the east of the country. Troops defending the area have lost more ground to Russian troops and intense fighting. One official in the region says the city could soon be shut off with no way to evacuate civilians. Chris Livesay reports on Ukraine's desperate effort in a battle that could decide the war.
The last bridge to Severodonetsk destroyed. Now, for 100,000 Ukrainians, there's no way out. You have two options, say the pro-Russian separatists: surrender or die. The Ukrainian army is high on tenacity, but low on ammo. To make sure none is wasted, they launched these American surveillance drones to help the gunners with coordinates for attack. They can't afford to miss, says Major Alexander. We have to get closer and take more risks because our enemies have long-range artillery. Long-range artillery like this Russian Grad rocket launcher, destroyed by Ukrainians using American howitzers. If only they had more of them, says Joe Goddard, a former British soldier now training Ukraine's National Guard.
Well, that is the sad part. I mean, these guys want to go and fight. They want to take villages. They want to actually push the Russians back. But the problem is the sheer unevenness of, the equipment they've got. So they're being smashed every day in the trenches with these heavy guns. And they want to do more, but they can't.
Ukraine is now asking for an additional 1,000 howitzers, 500 tanks, and 1,000 drones, among other heavy weapons. Without them, the city of Severodonetsk, that crucial domino in the Donbass, risks falling any day.
But even if Severodonetsk does fall, there's a growing insurgency across areas occupied by Putin's forces. In his nightly address, President Zelensky reminded Russian forces that capturing territory does not equal peace.
As we sit in the high 70s, low 80s, with wind already moving in at 20 miles an hour from the south. You know, Tanya, one of the things that we neglected to talk about earlier when we get to the 7-day forecast, we'll be used to the low 90s by the time we get into Father's Day weekend, now that we've run that trend ever since Sunday. I didn't bring up the fact that next week's going to be hotter.
Why? Why would you even bring that up?
Because I did think it's an important part of our weather trend that next week, actually, our average...
That we just gradually get hotter each week?
Our average temperatures for next week will actually be hotter than what we've experienced this week.
But ironically, we probably won't notice it as much at the beginning of the week because
Bingo.
we'll be used to it.
We're going to be used to it, right?
Mm-hmm. We won't have that huge shift
right
over the weekend.
You'd be like, oh, this is just another day in paradise. There you go.
Put that smile back on. All right, thanks, Michael. That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, Yadier Molina continues to make his case for greatest catcher of all time. Whoa. He sets a record against the Pirates. We're going to have the details coming up in sports. Plus, dramatic footage shows raging floodwaters pulling a house into the current of the swollen Yellowstone River as thousands flee the national park. And one new study sheds light on social media addiction and the signs to watch out for. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Joplin Outlaws hit the road for a Mink League South Division matchup, taking on the Nevada Griffins. Outlaws trying to claw back to 500, sitting at 4-5 overall. This game, the third meeting between these two teams already this season. Griffins won the first two, and this one ends with a walk-off single to shallow left from Luke Piazza as the Griffins win it 7-6. Nevada trailed 6-3 going into the 8th inning. Up next for the Outlaws, they go on the road once more, facing the Renegades up in Jefferson City. That will be tonight, 7 o'clock. Nevada opens up a 2-game homestand against the Des Moines Peak Prospects. Missouri High School Baseball Coaches Association releasing its all-state teams on Monday. McDonald County pitcher Levi Helm and catcher Cole Martin both named first-team all-state Class 5. Helm and Martin, the first two McDonald County teammates ever to be named all-state in the same season.
I was hoping I'd get it, but I was just more happy that Helm got it because after the year he had last year, I mean, he's deserved it. I mean, he's a good ball player.
It's something that I've worked really hard for. Just ever since my freshman year, I kind of had a goal of doing my best to get that accomplishment. And my senior year, I finally got it done, and all the hard work ended up paying off. We probably had one of the best defensive teams in the whole state, and I had full confidence in my defense.
Those guys were always ready to play. They wanted to play in big games. They were never nervous about it. And you know, the all-state thing it's awesome, but there's a lot more in store for them as well as they continue their career.
Check out the full story with Helm and Martin and the full list of local all-state players on our sports page at KOAMnewsnow.com. Little Major League action, game one of a doubleheader between the Cardinals and Pirates. Bottom three, Paul Goldschmidt continues his torrid pace. 2-run home run. Cards up 2-0. Little history in the 6th inning on the pop-up in foul territory. Yadier Molina. That is 4,865 putouts as a catcher. That happens to be the most in Major League history. In the 9th, Cardinals up 2. They close it out on a liner to Dylan Carlson. St. Louis takes game 1 from Pittsburgh 3-1. Then it got exciting. Game 2. Cardinals win it 9-1. Miles Michaelis was 1 strike away from a no-hitter. Now, 1 strike away from a no-hitter. At that point, though, the Cardinals had already committed 2 errors, and Michaelis had a couple of walks. So the score was actually 9-1 already when Michaelis, with 2 outs and 2 strikes in the 9th inning, gave up a ground rule double. But still, an amazing performance by Miles Michaelis as the Cards ended up sweeping the Pirates in that doubleheader. As for the Royals on the road, game 2 of the series against the Giants, San Francisco doubles this one up, wins it 4-2. Missouri Southern Softball hosting its annual Little Lions Camp in Joplin. It's a chance for youth softball players to learn from some of the best and a chance for Southern players to give back to some of their young fans.
Here we go. Atta girl. Good.
We got a gold glover here, folks.
Yes.
Seeing this camp specifically grow throughout the 4 years that I've been here is really exciting. I think the local coaches around here are really getting softball going, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
Nice. Good spin. It's continuing to grow, and it's just awesome to see because I love this game, and it's always good to, you know, give back to the community, especially work with little girls. Good. Atta girl.
I think our student athletes are amazing, and it's fun to watch our kids work with them.
Let's see your best walk up. Oh yes, got the bat flip. Here we go, Chloe.
Hoping they get the fundamentals and just have a good time.
Look at your feet right now. So if I draw a line, where's that pointing to?
I think anytime you have to teach a skill, it's a different perspective. So I think that helps them in return be a better player as well.
Nice job, good work, Kai. Switch! I just hope they know that they can have fun with the game because I know this game can be mentally tough.
Good hustle, good hustle!
I just want them to know, like, it's okay to fail because half this game is, you know, failing. So just have fun with it, enjoy what you can do, and, you know, just learn from it.
Still to come on the KOAM Morning News, one of Vladimir Putin's most vocal opponents transferred to a prison, this one with a reputation for harsh conditions. And a check on our 7-day forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns. Let's start with a live look over 7th and Rangeline in Joplin. Very warm start. 80 degrees is where we stand right now. Last gust at Joplin Regional Airport clocked in at 35 miles per hour. My goodness. 81 right now running through southeast Kansas, Chanute, Parsons, Oswego. A little bit more mild out on the eastern edge of southwest Missouri, where we've got Monette and Cassville at 75 and then 78 in Miami. Give you an idea of the old wind tracker here, where we've been in excess of 20 miles per hour at some of our airports, now sitting in between about 15 and 20. But we're going to have to fight this once again all day long. The dome of the heat wave now moving over the Great Lakes, at the very top of it right there, kind of following the jet stream, if you will. But it doesn't have much easterly push toward it. It's still hanging out here, kind of dissecting the northwestern portion of Kansas. So once again, for the 4 states, another hot one. We actually back off of any heat advisories, warnings, anything like that. Everything is now off to the east, just on the other side of the Mississippi. 7-day forecast for us. Still going to be abnormally warm today. Feel about like 97 to 99 this afternoon. Slight chance for isolated showers, mainly north of Highway 54 for late tonight into Thursday morning. Time now to turn our attention to the KOAM News Now Insta poll on our Facebook page. Nature's wrath, triggering conditions so dangerous at Yellowstone National Park that every entrance to the park across 3 states completely closed off. More than 10,000 visitors have now fled the park. Officials signaling the park's reopening remains uncertain until damage from record-breaking flooding can be assessed. Meredith Wood with the latest.
It's just going. Oh, you can see. There it goes.
Entire buildings caving in, rushing water swallowing them whole.
That is insane. Holy.
A statewide disaster has now been declared in Montana. The Yellowstone River has swollen to historic levels, the highest seen in more than 100 years, leading to catastrophic flooding across the region that spans the Yellowstone National Park and the Montana-Wyoming border. Relentless rains and rapid snow melt, equaling up to 2 to 3 months worth of precipitation, have saturated the park in only 3 days. And from the upper Midwest to the mid-Atlantic, nature's fury being felt in the form of violent storms.
I heard the thunderclap. It was like boom.
We just heard people screaming, saying that the roof was off.
On the heels of those violent storms comes sweltering, record-setting heat in some of those same regions. For hundreds of thousands now without power across multiple states, it's a situation that could turn deadly if electricity isn't restored quickly.
With temperatures anywhere between 105 with heat index going up to 110 degrees. The focus really is on getting the electricity back and making sure that we can provide cooling to our most vulnerable populations.
I'm Meredith Wood reporting.
Our question for you this morning: has Mother Nature ever ruined your travel plans? Connect to us. Go to KOAMNewsNow.com/vote or via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now. Health Watch next.
Topping Health Watch this morning, that endless scrolling on your phone can be harming you. And that's according to the Wall Street Journal. Researchers say there are things to look out for to see if you're addicted to social media, using social media excessively throughout the day, even in your free time, feeling the need to update others through your profiles because they are your audience, or if your social media use is getting in the way of your daily activities like sleeping and spending time with family and friends. You could be addicted. Analysts recommend taking breaks from social media and spending time away from your phone to help you disconnect. We've been hearing reports of people dealing with rebound COVID-19 symptoms after taking the antiviral drug called Paxlovid. And now a new study looks at how common the effect is. Dr. Malika Marshall reports from Boston.
Paxlovid is an antiviral pill prescribed to people at high risk for severe COVID disease. Studies show it can reduce the chances of needing to be hospitalized, but some patients have reported a rebound of COVID-19 symptoms after taking the drug. Mayo Clinic researchers looked at 483 high-risk patients treated for COVID-19 with a 5-day course of Paxlovid. Only a handful of patients developed rebound symptoms. All patients recovered, including those who had rebound symptoms, and those were typically mild. Most patients were vaccinated, many boosted. As for why some have a rebound in symptoms, researchers explain that one possibility is a replication of the virus that causes COVID-19 may trigger a secondary immune response that appears as mild symptoms. Patients also had other serious health problems, which they say can complicate recovery. More research is needed to figure out why some patients experience the rebound. Right now, scientists are looking at whether longer treatment may help. I'm Dr. Malika Marshall, CBS News, Boston.
Just like other antiviral medications, Paxlovid needs to be taken early in the illness, so within 5 days of developing symptoms. More and more Americans will soon be spending time in the water, which means parents will need to keep a very close eye on their kids when around the pool or beachside. Doctors from the Cleveland Clinic say some tips to keep in mind include having one designated adult per child, as lifeguards at public pools or beaches may be busy keeping their eyes on multiple people. They also say drowning can happen abruptly and sometimes goes unnoticed. Young swimmers especially should be kept at arm's length by an adult. It's also recommended that adults know CPR and to learn it if you don't already know it. Finally, don't forget to take breaks from swimming, stay hydrated, and apply sunscreen often. So while we're talking about sunscreen, according to a Cleveland Clinic dermatologist, sun exposure occurs the most in childhood. Just one childhood sunburn can increase the risk of melanoma, the deadliest form of skin cancer. Dermatologists urge parents to make sure their kids are wearing plenty of sunscreen. Say adding a good coat that requires rubbing in really matters. Waxy sunscreen sticks and sunscreen spray are also good options for protection. Let's look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. Coming up, authorities call off a search for a man who went over the Grand Falls in Joplin.
Sun is going to beat down on us once again today. Factor in that humidity and the wind. It's another hot one. We've got the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And it's election season. That means an increase in damaged or stolen campaign signs.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 5:31. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first, let's go over to Michael Hayslip.
Past couple of mornings have just been absolutely gorgeous since our heat wave began, but we've been void of any cloud cover. So the fact that we have some light wispy clouds hanging over the 4 states this morning going to bring us some of those beautiful, beautiful colors as we approach sunrise here in the next 20 minutes. There we are looking off to the northeast of 7th and Rangeline in Joplin, where we sit at 80 degrees, 81 in Chanute, 75 in Monette. Let's roll 79 in both Fort Scott and Nevada as the wind steadily works in from the south in between 15 to 20 miles per hour. Now, we avoid any excessive heat warnings, even heat advisories for today. Does not mean that we've escaped the heat wave because the color contour shows you how the milder temperature is still hanging over northwest Kansas, and anything on the southeast side of that, it's going to be hot, humid, and windy. Our weather trend for today will top out around 91 degrees, going to feel about like 97 to 99. And even though we lack the heat advisory, the muggy meter still going to put us in that oppressive category all the way into Father's Day weekend. Got a slight chance for an isolated raindrop or two, mainly north, there you go, north of Highway 54 for tonight into Thursday morning. Not looking at anything severe nor sustained and geographically extremely limited. 7-day forecast, we then heat up. That's right. We continue to heat up each and every afternoon into 95 on Saturday. Tanya and I were talking earlier that next week's average high from Monday through Friday is actually going to be hotter than this week's average high from Monday through Friday.
All right. But we'll be used to it, so we're not going to complain as much.
See? And it's Father's Day. So,
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Get ready for Father's Day.
Hooray for Father's Day.
Congratulations to all the dads out there. We thank you for all you do. All right.
Wow, preemptive. We usually do that on a Friday headed into the weekend. You just wanted to beat me to the punch on that one.
Well, you're bringing it up, so.
Wow.
I guess we give you a shout out every day till Sunday,
get that in there real fast there, didn't you?
We got 2 more days to do it, too. All right, thanks, Michael. Authorities stopped their search for a man missing at the Grand Falls in Joplin. The search began shortly before 5 on Tuesday afternoon. Authorities received a report that a man had went over the falls and did not resurface. Reddings Mill and Neosho Water Rescue provided support in that area. And further downstream, Galena, Kansas Water Rescue entered the water near Shimmerhorn Park in Cherokee County. Joplin Fire Deputy Chief Andy Nimmo says they called off the search Tuesday night because the water is swift and dangerous. They asked everyone to avoid the area. The search will resume in the morning, later this morning, under the direction of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Well, during campaign season, the Crawford County Sheriff's Department says they get an increase in theft and vandalism of political signs. KOAM's Jalen Banks has more.
This year, a constitutional amendment known as to value them both will be on the ballot during the Kansas primary election in August. If passed, the state would have no constitutional right to abortion, allowing lawmakers to pass restrictive abortion measures. In Pittsburgh, supporters of both sides have gone about showing their support in the form of signs. Crawford County Sheriff Danny Smith says during campaign season they receive an increase in calls for sign theft and vandalism. He also says committing these acts could lead to consequences.
If you're going to steal a sign or deface it, and if you're looking at theft or criminal charges, you're going to get a court date, just like you would anything else. You have to appear at court, and then between the county attorney and the judges, they're going to decide at some point in time if you're going to get a fine or what goes along with the consequences of doing that. And it's really up to them how they decide to do that.
Laura Washburn, a Pittsburgh resident, has been a victim of the recent crimes, having lost hundreds due to thefts. She says the signs represent more than just a view on the vote.
Well, just as this whole issue on the ballot is about the Kansas Constitution, we all also really care about the United States Constitution, which guarantees us freedom of speech, and our political signs represent that freedom of speech. We want to open conversations with people.
In Pittsburgh, Jalen Banks, KOAM News.
Fines for theft could reach up to $2,500. Well, if your KOAM or Fox 14 signal becomes a little glitchy next week, it's a sign of progress. We'll be broadcasting from a lower temporary antenna while a crew installs a new, more technically advanced antenna at the top of our tower. This is the final step in our More Power project, and it'll allow some viewers who previously lost our signal to receive us once again. Now, if everything goes according to plan, we'll be back up and stronger than ever by the end of June. Well, with this intense heat, it's important to remember to stay safe from heat exhaustion. Symptoms include heavy sweating, cold, pale and clammy skin, and muscle cramps. Experts say you should get medical help right away if there is vomiting, if symptoms get worse or last longer than an hour, or if confusion develops.
So the biggest thing to do if you start experiencing any of those symptoms would be to try and get out of the environment that you're in. So either get out of the direct sunlight, or if you can, get into somewhere that is cool, that has some cooler air. Typically, before you have to come to the hospital, if you can drink sips of water or try and cool yourself off, that would be the best thing to do.
You can find a list of area cooling centers on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com.
Heed Dr. Zach's advice, and also remember, if you are outside for extended periods of time, make sure you take breaks. Do so either inside to let yourself cool down in some air conditioning, or do so in the shade. Give your body just a couple extra minutes than you normally would to just kind of recuperate here. As slowly our, human nature, the human body is going to get used to this, but this is our first good old-fashioned heat wave of 2022. Now remember, next week is actually going to end up being hotter than what we're experiencing this week. I just think by that point in time, we'll be a little bit more prepared for it. Highs in the low 90s later on today, feeling about in between 97 and 99. Don't think we'll see a whole lot of triple digits as far as our heat index readings go.
All right. Well, this morning we're discussing Mother Nature's wrath. A statewide disaster has now been declared in Montana as the Yellowstone River has swollen to historic levels, the highest seen in more than 100 years. From the video, you can see floodwaters so powerful an entire house pulled into the current. Relentless rains and rapid snowmelt equaled up to 2 to 3 months worth of precipitation have saturated the park in only 3 days, leading to catastrophic flooding across the region that spans the Yellowstone National Park and the Montana and Wyoming border. More than 10,000 visitors have now fled the park. This comes as record-breaking heat wave now bakes the same region.
Our question for you this morning is, Mother Nature ever ruined your travel plans? Right now, Tanya, 60% of our respondents say, yeah, Yes, she has. I imagine that anybody with a child that partakes in any extracurricular event in an outdoor capacity at one point in time has been on the road to said event, only for Mother Nature to frown upon that and say, oh, a little lightning will change your travel plans real quickly.
Oh, yeah. I've gone to certain events that didn't get canceled until you arrived and it was an hour later. Yeah.
Well, it's called a hotel tax. I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hazel's gonna back off of that conversation.
We try. All right, that's a look at our top news stories. Coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News, we've got a preview of a quirky comedy coming to theaters about a lonely inventor and his unlikely robot companion. Plus, at least a dozen countries have banned the new Disney film Lightyear. We're going to tell you why when we return. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Tapping World Watch, one of Putin's biggest critics, Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, has been abruptly moved from prison. He was serving an 11.5-year sentence. Navalny was reportedly taken to a high-security penal colony 155 miles east of Moscow. His lawyer told he was no longer at his original prison camp in Pokrov when he arrived for a visit. Navalny, who has long criticized Putin as a tyrant, was jailed for parole violations after a trip to Germany. Those in Navalny's camp say the prison he's being transferred to has a reputation for extremely harsh treatment of inmates. He was sentenced to 9 more years on his original sentence this past March for fraud and contempt of court. Navalny says all the charges against him are false and are aimed to hurt his political aspirations. Well, Disney Pixar's latest movie, Lightyear, is getting ready to hit theaters this Friday, but the space adventure featuring legendary character Buzz Lightyear won't be touching down anywhere. As a same-sex scene is causing the film to receive criticism and even bans internationally. Anti-gay backlash comes as people across the nation and the world continue celebrating June, marking Pride Month. Fox News' Ashley Dvorkin is in Hollywood with the latest on that, plus reactions from the film's stars.
Good luck, Captain. We're all counting on you!
Roger that.
Houston, we have a problem. Disney Pixar announcing its new upcoming film Lightyear is banned from being released in at least 14 Middle Eastern and Asian countries over what movie officials speculate is a brief scene depicting 2 animated characters sharing a same-sex kiss. Actor Chris Evans, the voice behind iconic Space Ranger Buzz Lightyear, expressing disappointment.
It's great that we're a part of something that's making steps forward in the social inclusion capacity, but it's frustrating that there are still places that aren't where they should be.
Representatives for the United Arab Emirates saying the same-sex kiss violates the country's, quote, media content standards. But producers for Lightyear say they aren't going to change a thing.
We've gotten requests for things to cut. Disney isn't going to modify the material. We're not going to cut out anything.
Other cast members applauding the commitment to representing members of the LGBTQ community.
We're hoping for a time when we don't even have to have this conversation. It's normal and it should be normalized.
This isn't the only time a same-sex interaction caused a Disney film to be banned. Earlier this year, Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries refused to show Marvel's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness over similar complaints. Lightyear acts as a prequel to the Toy Story franchise and follows Buzz on his sci-fi adventures through the cosmos.
It's like this is the movie that Andy watched that made him want to get the toy. It's really cool.
You can catch Lightyear when it blasts off in theaters June 17th.
Meanwhile, officials in China, the largest movie market in the world, have yet to comment on whether Lightyear will be allowed to play there. This time, representatives for the Walt Disney Company believe it likely will not get the green light. UK is marking the 5th anniversary of the Grenfell Tower disaster. 72 people were killed when the social housing block caught fire. The flames spread rapidly and uncontrollably due to a combustible cladding system that was added to the tower's external walls. Survivors and family members of those who lost their lives are still fighting for justice. El Salvador has lost at least 50 million in Bitcoin over the past 10 months, about 50.4% of the country's total investment in the cryptocurrency. El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, has amassed 2,301 Bitcoins that were worth $103 million since the country adopted it as legal tender alongside the U.S. dollar in September of 2021. Now they're worth $51 million. That's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. We'll be right back with the news you need to know before you head out the door. Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Authorities stopped their search for a man missing at the Grand Falls in Joplin. The search began shortly before 5 on Tuesday afternoon. Authorities received a report that a man had went over the falls and did not resurface. Reddings Mill and Neosho Water Rescue provided support in that area. And further downstream, Galena, Kansas Water Rescue entered the water near Shimmerhorn Park in Cherokee County. Joplin Fire Deputy Chief Andy Nemo says they called off the search Tuesday night because the water was swift and dangerous, and they're asking everyone to avoid the area. The search will resume this morning under the direction of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Berry County, Missouri Sheriff's Department reports authorities have captured Lance Stevens, the last of 3 men who broke out of the Berry County Jail earlier this month. He was captured in San Antonio, Texas. Authorities had previously captured the other 2 escapees. Christopher Blevins was caught near Casper, Wyoming, and Matthew Crawford found in Springfield. Police in Aurora, Missouri investigate the death of a couple. Police chief says a neighbor got a call asking him to call 911 for help, and when officers arrived at the home at 1642 Oak Drive, they found the man and woman both dead from gunshot wounds. Police say there is no threat to the public. With this intense heat, it's important to remember to stay safe from heat exhaustion. Symptoms include heavy sweating, cold, pale and clammy skin, and muscle cramps. Experts say you should get medical help right away if there is vomiting, if symptoms get worse or last longer than an hour, or if confusion develops. You can find a list of area cooling centers on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. It's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Gorgeous looking Wednesday morning with just a little light cloud cover. No precipitation to worry about. Going to be windy once again, and temperatures already up into the high 70s, low 80s. Any rain that we do see late tonight into early Friday morning going to be very, very isolated. Quick hitters, mainly north of Highway 54. As those bebop through, get ready for a scorcher of a weekend. Look at that. We incrementally get hotter as we head towards Father's Day. Be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
An offbeat new comedy looks at the power of connection and companionship wherever you happen to find it. David Daniel has a look.
My name's Brian. This is my infamous inventions pantry. It's actually a cowshed.
A lonely would-be inventor in North Wales is as surprised as anyone when his latest creation actually works in the comedy Brian and Charles.
Would you like me to give you a name? Tony? Charles? Charles. Charles? Charles. You like that name, do you? Hello, Brian. Hello, Charles. It's lovely to meet you. This is incredibly overwhelming.
Writers and stars David Earl and Chris Hayward developed the characters in comedy clubs, making the film presented new challenges.
I'm holding the head on a stick. I have one arm sticking out of one side. I'm wearing an enormous pair of trousers. I'm wearing plates of armor on my shins. I can't really see where I'm going.
So I enjoyed the fun of him bashing into doorways and having to guide his hand like a little toddler.
I want to sit in the front, Brian.
No, you're not sitting in the front, you're sitting in the back.
I will sit in the front.
You'll sit in the back.
Front.
Stop saying front.
Front, 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 front.
My son at the time was going through his teenage years, sort of 14, 15, so definitely took some of those experiences and chucked them in the film, literally word for word, some of it.
I'm not a child. I can look after myself, man.
What's got into you?
My main concern was, are people going to believe this is a robot?
Members of the crew would sometimes say, oh, look, Charles looks really sad there. Or look at Charles, he's so happy. And yet obviously the face never changes.
I am your friend, Brian.
I'm your friend too.
In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
Brian and Charles opens in theaters this Friday. We'll be back with another look at your forecast right after this.
Beautiful look over 7th and Range Line. A little light cloud cover providing us with marvelous Wednesday morning colors. 80 degrees is where we stand. The wind already kicking in, gusting 30 miles per hour, and temperatures high 70s, low 80s abound. Moving in from the south right now. Another blustery one. We do avoid any wind advisories. As a matter of fact, we don't turn up on the old watches, warnings, and advisory map. But that being said, you can still tell it's going to be a little bit of a warm one. And we've moved all the advisories and the warnings really off to our east right now, because that's kind of where the heat wave is going to dominate the middle of the U.S. But even with that being said, know that it's going to be abnormally warm once again. We should be around, say about mid, a little bit high 80s today. We'll move up into the, say 90-degree range. When we get to the 7-day forecast, you're going to notice that we've got a little chance for some sporadic rainfall. Now, what that's going to equivocate to is an isolated raindrop or two, mainly north of Highway 54. Now, very limited lightning risk with this. And number one, it's nothing severe. Number two, it's certainly not geographically elongated, that's for sure. You can tell it's just a little pop every now and then for tonight into Thursday morning. Usually we get something like this. We're hoping for a little bit of a cold front on the backside of it. That will not be the case. We actually get warmer as we head into Father's Day weekend. Mid-90s by the time we cruise through Friday and Saturday. And then next week, mid-90s abound. Be back right after this.
Coming up, authorities locate and capture the last escaped inmate from Berry County, Missouri.
Positive aspect, no heat advisories to worry about. On the flip side of that, we just get hotter headed into Father's Day weekend. The latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And Freeman's Ozark Center will answer calls in Missouri when someone dials 988.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first, let's head over to Michael Hayslip.
3 factors at play. Number 1, broke the record, the warm low record from last night. Number 2, avoided any heat advisories for today. Number 3, just wait for Father's Day weekend because we actually get hotter as we head toward the holiday. Here we are with a live look outside of Television City. We were talking about that record warm low. Joplin Regional Airport only dipped down to 80 degrees last night. That's right, that's as low as it got, 80 degrees. That breaks the previous warm low, that we like to call it, of 79 for June the 14th. That dates back to 1981. There we are over 7th and Range Line. See a little bob in the camera right there? Well, that's an indicator of those high winds. As a matter of fact, let's just back off our current conditions here and take a look at the trees. You can tell if they're blowing like that it is a blustery one outside. 32 miles an hour, the last gust we picked up at Joplin Regional Airport. The temperatures, they're just about similar in nature as what we saw Monday morning, Tuesday morning, high 70s, low 80s. Third consecutive day it's been blustery. Wind will begin to calm down tomorrow, but we're going to have to fight this for the rest of the day. As I mentioned earlier, despite the heat, despite the wind, we do not have any heat advisories or wind advisories out. The heat advisories and the heat warnings, those have shifted off to the east, but they'll return, trust me. Today, up into the low 90s, feeling about like 97 to 99. And the reason those heat advisories will return, Tanya, is we're going to push up to 93 Thursday, 94 Friday, 95 on Saturday. All
right, well, it's going to be hot and we're going to be used to it by the weekend.
Those rain chances.
I got to come up with another way to say that. I'm going to sound like a broken record by the end of the week.
Those rain chances that you see for tonight into tomorrow, north of Highway 54, and sporadic, about like that.
All right, good to know. All right, thanks, Michael. Authorities capture an escaped inmate. The Berry County, Missouri Sheriff's Department has just reported authorities have captured Lance Stevens, the last of 3 men who broke out of the Berry County Jail earlier this month. He was captured in San Antonio, Texas. Authorities had previously captured the other 2 escapees. Christopher Blevins was caught near Casper, Wyoming, and Matthew Crawford in Springfield. Authorities are searching for a suspect who allegedly stole numerous sport bikes. Officials from the Neosho Police Department say 21-year-old Charlton Dragon is suspected of stealing multiple bikes in recent weeks. They say he met with sellers of the sport bikes and then asked to test drive the bikes. He then allegedly took the bikes and never returned them. Authorities are asking anyone with information on Dragon to contact the Neosho Police Department. Authorities stopped their search for a man missing at the Grand Falls in Joplin. The search began shortly before 5 on Tuesday afternoon. Authorities received a report that a man had went over the falls and did not resurface. Reddings Mill and Neosho Water Rescue provided support in that area. Further downstream, Galena, Kansas Water Rescue entered the water near Shimmerhorn Park in Cherokee County. Joplin Fire Deputy Chief Andy Nimmo says they called off the search Tuesday night because the water was swift and dangerous. They then asked everyone to avoid the area. The search will resume this morning under the direction of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Well, police in Aurora, Missouri investigate the death of a couple. Police chief says a neighbor got a call asking him to call 911 for help. When officers arrived at the home at 1642 Oak Drive, they found the man and woman both dead from gunshot wounds. Police say there is no threat to the public. Well, drivers in Crawford County may have to take a different route for a couple of days. It started yesterday from 260th from 160 Highway to 126 Highway, closed to through traffic for railroad crossing repairs. Officials say these repairs will take about 2 days to complete, weather permitting. Oklahoma's Attorney General has asked the state's highest appeals court to set execution dates for 25 death row inmates. This comes after a federal judge's rejection of their challenge to the state's lethal injection method. 25 similar filings with the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals on Friday. Attorney General John O'Connor wrote that the federal court stays of execution are no longer in place. Therefore, there are no longer any legal impediments to executing these inmates who have exhausted their appeals. A new phone line will soon be available to anyone experiencing a mental health crisis. 988. That's the national 3-digit phone number for all mental health, substance abuse, and suicide crises. All calls to this number will be routed to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline centers in each state. Freeman's Ozark Center will be one of 200 call centers nationwide and says this is an easier, more convenient way for people to receive help.
If you don't know what else to do, people call 911. We're encouraging people to call 988 if you're having an emotional or a behavioral health crisis. That means you can be having stress, depression, insomnia, thoughts of self-harm, maybe substance use.
Ozark Center will begin accepting 988 calls effective July 16th. 988 will not currently eliminate the old national hotline. Pittsburgh first responders host a mock accident demonstration for Leadership Academy students. Academy has a partnership with the United States Army. Pittsburgh high school students discuss civic organizations and listen to community leaders. Fire department, police, sheriff, and ambulance departments played a key role in this program. This demonstration shows what the students have been learning in the classroom.
Our goal is to help these students become better citizens and get involved in their community. So we spend a lot of time in the classroom talking about those subjects, but we also spend a lot of time out in the community getting to know what each of those aspects are.
Leadership Academy is a 16-day summer program centered on government and civic leadership. This program allows students to learn through real-life applications. With this intense heat, it's important to remember to stay safe from heat exhaustion. Symptoms include heavy sweating, cold, pale, and clammy skin, and muscle cramps. Experts say you should get medical help right away if there is vomiting, if symptoms get worse or last longer than an hour, or if confusion develops.
So the biggest thing to do if you start experiencing any of those symptoms would be to try and get out of the environment that you're in. So either get out of the direct sunlight, or if you can, get into somewhere that is cool, that has some cooler air. Typically, before you have to come to the hospital, if you can drink sips of water or try and cool yourself off, that would be the best thing to do.
You can find a list of area cooling centers on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Well, today, way back in 1215, King John puts his seal on the Magna Carta Act. Following a revolt by the English nobility against his rule, King John put his royal seal on the Magna Carta, also known as the Great Charter. The document was essentially a peace treaty between John and his barons. It guaranteed that the king would respect feudal rights and privileges, uphold freedom of the church, and maintain the nation's law. Although a reactionary than a progressive document in its day. The Magna Carta was seen as a cornerstone in the development of democratic England by later generations.
Essentially leading us to the phrase today that no one is above the law.
That's right.
Yep. Weather trend for today, up into the low 90s. Another hot, humid, and windy day. So what does that mean? Yep, back into the oppressive category. Well, I shouldn't say back into it. It's not like we've left it since Sunday for the most part. Any rain that we do see for tonight into tomorrow, it's going to be north of Highway 54, just little pops. Got a chance for a limited lightning risk with that for early tomorrow morning, but certainly it's not widespread. Friday morning, you get a good dose of thunderstorms to our far north, really not affecting our counties, but this is something that we'll keep our eyes on throughout the course of today, looking forward to the next 48 hours to make sure that this doesn't have any deep southerly sag to it that could affect us. As of right now, it does not. No reprieve from the heat on the backside of any rain that we do see, as we'll be up into the mid 90s for Friday, Saturday, and roll in the 90s on Father's Day, as well as into next week.
All right, that's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News. If it's Wednesday, you know what that means. It's time for another Wildcat Wednesday. We're going to have Will Morris from the K-State Extension Office stopping by to talk about fair season. Plus, the January 6th committee postponed day 3 of its hearing. We'll explain why, and why walking with hiking poles is good for you. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Topping Nation Watch this morning, it's been 1 month since a gunman shot and killed 10 people at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. An additional 3 people injured. Community holding a ceremony just steps away from the shooting location to mark the occasion. The Buffalo Fire Department rang a bell 13 times to honor the victims, and a 13-second moment of silence held. Families of victims and employees attended the ceremony. 2 more women plan to file civil lawsuits against Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson. That's according to a lawyer representing 24 women who have already filed lawsuits over misconduct allegations. Some cases do accuse Watson of sexual assault. He was not charged criminally in Texas, where he played before he was traded from the Houston team to the Cleveland team. Watson denies any misconduct. He has not directly answered questions about whether he would settle the suits. And Watson remains under investigation by the NFL, which could suspend him if it finds he violated the league's personal conduct policy. Watson's 5-year contract, which ESPN says is the most guaranteed money in league history, has been controversial in light of the multitude of accusations. House Select Committee investigating the January 6th siege on the U.S. Capitol makes an adjustment to its schedule. Now, the hearing originally planned for today has been postponed. Sources say a technical issue has led to this delay. Committee's work expected to resume now tomorrow. On Monday, the committee detailed how then-President Donald Trump refused to listen to advisors who had told him he lost the 2020 election. They added that President Trump instead took the advice of his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, to claim the election was rigged. That's a look at today's top national stories. We'll be right back with a Wildcat Wednesday right after this.
Welcome back. It's time for another Wildcat Wednesday segment, and this morning we've brought Will Morris in-house here to talk to us about fair season.
Yes.
Like it's the culmination of what the kids have been working on all year long.
Yes, so it is getting ready to be county fair season. July is a very, very busy time for 4-H and FFA youth who are part of the fair. So the fair is more than just, an event or another time to take their animals out or bring their projects in. It is really the highlight and showcase event of stuff they have been working on all year round. So it's a great time for them to be able to go out, show the public that come and visit what they've been doing, what they've been working on. What a lot of people don't know when they go to the fairs and they see the exhibits and things like that is a lot of them were actually done by youth in their community.
Okay, so the fair's not just animals. Let's talk about some of the other categories that you could enter in, and is there categories that you don't have to be in 4-H to enter in.
So there's all sorts of projects, and a lot of fairs, even if there's not a project for you that like fits one of those specific categories, we have something that's called miscellaneous, so we can kind of fit you in there. So there are all sorts of things such as photography, foods, arts and crafts, rocketry. We have a lot of new STEM projects. One is a STEM Lego project that is this will be the second year of it for 4-H members, and it's pretty awesome. They get to build different sceneries and things out of Legos and bring those to be on display. For those that aren't in 4-H, many fairs have what we call an open class. So for people like you and I, if we want to put something and enter it into the local fair, we can enter it in open class. So if you take a great photo and you want to print it off and bring it to be judged at the fair, then you can do that.
I remember growing up, my mom always had several sewing projects she'd enter every year. Yeah.
Yes.
And I briefly talked about the animals. Like,
yes.
What are the kids doing to prepare their animals for the fair?
So that is such a long process. So a lot of youth, they get their animals or they'll bring them out of their pasture, however they acquire them, typically in the winter months. And they have been working with them since then to help prepare them to be able to not only be trained, but to be safe enough for them to be able to show them and for them to be able to stay at the fair, for people to come out and see and learn about them. So if you go to your local fair and you see a youth leading a cow or something like that, ask them about it. Stop them, ask them questions, have them tell you about their project, because they've put a lot of hard work and time into those to be able to bring them there and showcase them at those events.
Okay. And I know you're working a lot with the Crawford County Fair,
yes.
but there's 3 other fairs going on in your
yes.
district.
Yes.
The first of which I think you said was Labette County.
Yeah, so we have, there's a county fair in every district or every county that happens. So the first ones will be our Montgomery, Labette, and Wilson County fairs. And they start about 3rd week to 4th week of July and go through the end. And then our Crawford County Fair will be August 3rd through the 6th.
All right, a lot of fun.
Yes.
A lot of fun. A lot of hard work goes into all of that,
yes.
of course, too. Anything else you want to add about the fairs?
Just come out and check it out and see the kids, because like I said, they put a lot of work into it and they love showing off what all the hard work and everything they've done, and it's a great showcase for them.
Okay. And of course, you've got links to all the fair board, like information about all 4 fairs
Yep.
on your website.
Yep. So if you go to our website, each county has a different fair page, and you can find resources, a schedule of events, things like that. So that way you know when and where things are happening.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in this morning, Will.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Topping Health Watch this morning, gun violence at schools has districts across the country looking into ways to protect its students. Michael George looks at a program teaching children how to spot troubling warning signs with their peers.
The class these 7th graders are taking isn't math or science.
Acting immediately and taking it seriously.
These students at John H. Walker Middle School in Nutley, New Jersey are learning how to spot a potential school shooter.
I think it's necessary. It's a kind of important topic.
Sandy Hook Promise, formed after the Newtown, Connecticut massacre, offers the Say Something program to middle and high schools across the country at no cost.
There is a lot of stuff going on in schools today.
Training manager Sarah Militello says the goal is to teach kids to spot warning signs when someone may be at risk of harming themselves or others.
We can empower them to say something and speak up.
Those signs include withdrawing from friends in school, bragging about guns, or suggesting self-harm or threats to others. Often those red flags can be seen on social media. Sandy Hook Promise says in 4 out of 5 school shootings, the attacker told people their plans ahead of time.
This is why it's so important that we talk to students to recognize when someone needs help, bring that to the trusted adult who has the experience and knowledge to get that person the help they need.
Nutley anti-bullying coordinator Joe Capello says the challenge is getting kids to speak up.
A lot of students are concerned that if they say something, they're breaking their trust with their friend. But to me, it's about you're increasing your relationship with your friend because you're concerned about their safety.
Students like 12-year-old Dean Turso say they're getting the message.
It's not snitching if you tell them what's happening because it can help a person.
Difficult conversations that are necessary and could save lives. Michael George, CBS News, Nutley, New Jersey.
Sandy Hook Promise also offers an anonymous reporting system through a mobile app, hotline, and websites. A study from Johns Hopkins University looks at older adults finding uncontrolled diabetes is at least 1.5 times more likely to push early stage heart failure patients into late stage. Additionally, early stage patients whose heart show signs of structural heart disease were more likely to experience heart failure at a younger age if their diabetes was considered out of control. A healthy plant-based diet is linked to a 14% lower breast cancer risk in postmenopausal women. That's according to a French study of more than 65,000 women. That diet consists of whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts. Researchers also found unhealthy plant-based diets raised breast cancer risk by 20%. That's a diet consisting of fruit juices, refined grains, potatoes, sugar-sweetened beverages, and desserts. And walking with hiking poles improves functional capacity in people with heart disease when compared with other cardiovascular exercise. This is coming out of the Canadian Journal of Cardiology. Walking with poles, it's called Nordic walking, works the upper and lower body, engaging the core and reducing stress on the knees. That is a look at some of today's top health stories as you're watching the KOAM Morning News. Here's a live look outside of Television City. Already a windy one. Let's talk a little bit about a record that we're coming off of that we set yesterday. It's called the record warm low. What that means is we take the temperature at which we bottomed out with yesterday, and that was only 80 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport. That is as low as it got, and that breaks the old record of 79 that was set back in 1981. So yeah, that is our new June 14th record. That's back-to-back days that we've established a new record warm low temperature at Joplin Regional. There we are over 7th and Rangeline. Turn the camera off to the north-northeast for a beautiful looking sunrise. It's nice to have a little cloud cover up there. No precipitation coming out of it, but at the same point, gives us some nice bright June colors. 80 degrees still is where we stand. Talk a little bit here about our wind. Our humidity, not too bad, 69%. We'll take that. Especially considering that it's still going to be muggy this afternoon. So that's 69% to start our morning. Not too oppressive when you walk outside. 80 in Chanute, Parsons, and Oswego. 78 in Nevada and Lamar. Let's roll 77 in Miami. Out here to the east, it's been a little bit more mild. Very comfortable in Monette and Cassville. 75 and 76 respectively. No matter where you are, it's going to be hard to get out of the way of the wind. Still coming in 15 to 20 miles per hour. Gusting already in between 30 and 35 miles per hour. Now, as we look at the dome of the heat wave that's now moved over the Great Lakes, yesterday had more of a vertical turn to it. It's kind of up, it was in the upper plains, right up here where they're having the thunderstorm activity this morning. Now the dome of it is moved over the Great Lakes, and what that's done is shifted all the advisories off to the east of us. And so you'll notice we don't have any heat advisories, we don't have any wind advisories. Of course, everything that's indicated in the pink and the orange is heat related. And so now we're stretching from Florida all the way up to the Great Lakes. Let's go back and from the color contour, you can tell, even though we're not in the midst of any watches, warnings, or advisories, look at that. It just doesn't want to budge on the jet stream right there. And so you get into central Kansas toward us, and it's going to be, once again, abnormally warm. Kind of reset the Skywatch storm tracker here and talked about our light cloud cover, but as you can tell, no rain throughout the entire Midwest. That being said, we still do have a whole lot of convective available potential energy up there, but this week we've been able to cap the CAPE. So the CAPE is the convective available potential energy. Now when we throw that cap on there, look at that. Just covers all of it up, and that's why we've been void of any thunderstorm activity despite our warmer temperatures. And when we take a look at the severe thunderstorm risk map, we do see that elevated area up in between Chicago and Minneapolis, and that'll be the second time in 3 days that specific area has ended up in the elevated category. So they're not only dealing with high winds, hail, damaging winds as a matter of fact, but also too, they're in the midst of the heat wave as well. Let's bebop on down to the eastern Pacific where we've got Tropical Storm Blaze expected to become a hurricane. It'll stay minor though, probably just a Category 1 as it spins off the coast of Mexico. They'll get a little bit of rain, but probably will avoid any catastrophic flooding, anything of that nature. As we get into future track, we've got a chance for a raindrop or two, mainly north of Highway 54 for late tonight into early Thursday morning. Very limited lightning threat and certainly not widespread. Friday, here's what we'll keep an eye on, because if this thing has any southerly sag to it, which it really wants to stay off to our northeast right now, but right there, as this thing develops over Kansas City, we'll kind of pay attention to that and see if it doesn't want to drop down to the south. Then get ready for a hot Father's Day weekend, as we'll have the mid-90s. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Coming up, authorities locate and capture the last escaped inmate from Berry County, Missouri.
Already off to a warm one, and we'll be back up into the 90s as we head into Father's Day weekend. The latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And Freeman's Ozark Center will answer calls in Missouri when someone dials 988.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6:32. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment. But first, let's head over and learn more about this heat wave from Michael Hayslip.
All right, there we are, Tanya. Live look outside of Television City. The cloud cover's just been so delightful this morning. Not that Monday and Tuesday's sunrise were, were disappointing. It was bright blue sky. Didn't give us a whole lot of color, so I enjoy it when the light clouds do that. 80 right now in Joplin and Chanute, 79 in Carthage, 77 in Miami, and up and away we go, back into the 90s for this will be the 4th consecutive day that will top out in the 90s in some form or fashion. And yep, we're going to go ahead and put us in the oppressive category all the way into the weekend. Any rain that we do see for today is going to be very quick and sporadic north of Highway 54. Limited lightning risk, not widespread rain. You get to the south side of Highway 54 and going to stay on the dry side. Even warmer on Thursday and Friday. Maybe I should just call it hotter, because we're going to go 93, 94, 95 to Saturday.
All right, well, looking forward to...
Oh, I want to hear the end of this one.
I'm trying to think of something positive there. Okay, so here you go.
It's like you just ran out of steam on me right there. You're like, I'm looking forward to...
Pop that 70 back up. Our low last night was 80 degrees.
Yes.
Yes, overnight. It didn't get below 80.
We did not get below 80.
And your 7-day...
At Joplin Regional Airport.
And your 7-day, you have it well below that point every night for the next 7 days.
Yes.
That's something positive.
I do think we'll be in the mid to high 70s.
Kind of. There you go.
No more, well, I'll have to go see what our record warm low is for tonight. We'll probably challenge it. I don't know if we'll break it though.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Well, authorities stopped their search for a man missing at the Grand Falls in Joplin. The search began shortly before 5 on Tuesday afternoon. Authorities received a report that a man had went over the falls and did not resurface. Reddings Mill and Neosho Water Rescue provided support in that area. Further downstream, Galena, Kansas Water Rescue entered the water near Shimmerhorn Park in Cherokee County. Joplin Fire Deputy Chief Andy Nimmo says they called off the search Tuesday night because the water was swift and dangerous, and they asked everyone to avoid the area. The search will resume later this morning under the direction of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Authorities capture an escaped inmate. Berry County, Missouri Sheriff's Department reported the authorities have captured Lance Stevens, the last of 3 men who broke out of the Berry County jail earlier this month. He was captured in San Antonio, Texas. Authorities had previously captured the other 2 escapees. Christopher Blevins, caught near Casper, Wyoming, and Matthew Crawford was found in Springfield. And authorities are searching for a suspect who allegedly stole a number of sport bikes. Officials from the Neosho Police Department say 21-year-old Charlton Dragon is suspected of stealing multiple bikes over the past few weeks. They say he met with sellers of the bikes and asked to test drive them. He allegedly then took the bike and never returned them. Authorities are asking anyone with information on Dragon to contact the Neosho Police Department. Well, police in Aurora, Missouri investigate the death of a couple. Police chief says a neighbor got a call asking him to call 911 for help. When officers arrived at the home at 1642 Oak Drive, they found the man and woman both dead from gunshot wounds. Police say there is no threat to the public. Pittsburgh first responders host a mock accident demonstration for Leadership Academy students. Pittsburgh high school students discuss civic organizations and listen to community leaders. The fire department, police, sheriff, and ambulance, they all play a key role in the program.
The idea is to get the students to understand what each of those agencies are responsible for and how they work together as a team in order to make sure that we are all safe as citizens.
Leadership Academy is a 16-day summer program centered on government and civic leadership. This program allows students to learn through real-life applications. Well, a new phone line will soon be available to anyone experiencing a mental health crisis. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky has details from the Ozark Center's Crisis Center, which will be one of 200 across the country to launch this program.
We all know what to dial in an emergency. 911. During a mental health crisis, that number can be long and difficult to remember. Soon, there will be an easier number to dial.
That means that any individual in any state in the United States can pick up their cell phone and dial 988, or they could text or chat to 988.
Starting July, when someone experiencing a crisis dials 988, they'll be connected with a crisis specialist. One of the facilities providing the specialist, the Ozark Center in Joplin.
First and foremost, we tried to calm the individual that we're talking with, and we use coping techniques and coping skills to calm that individual, obtain information.
Jeremy Floyd is a crisis specialist for the Ozark Crisis Center and will be one of the specialists answering the call when people dial into the new hotline.
I think it's very important. A lot of communities lack mental health needs, and the more that we're concentrating on the mental health problems within our nation, I think we'll see more and more of crisis centers populate throughout the country. But we definitely got to concentrate on mental health issues across the board.
The Ozark Center will be one of 200 crisis call centers throughout the country.
We have received a 988 implementation grant that's allowed us to buy some new upgrades as far as IT, purchase new furniture, purchase new chairs. We're also adding 7 new staff to our team to accommodate for what we anticipate will be the increases in volume.
This number isn't just for suicidal thoughts or self-harm. It can also be used for other mental health issues.
So that people will know 988 is for anything emotional, mental health, behavioral health, or even addictions. It doesn't have to necessarily be just thoughts of suicide.
In Joplin, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
The Ozark Center will begin accepting 988 calls effective July 16th. 988 will not currently eliminate the old national hotline. Today, back in 1917, the U.S. Congress passes the Espionage Act. 2 months after America's formal entrance into World War I against Germany, that's when it passed, enforced largely by Mitchell Palmer, the United States Attorney General under President Woodrow Wilson. The Espionage Act essentially made it a crime for any person to convey information intended to interfere with the U.S. Armed Forces prosecution of the war effort or to promote the success of the country's enemies. Anyone found guilty of such acts would be subjected to a fine of $10,000 and a prison sentence of 20 years.
Sometimes a lot more than that. From a historical journalism perspective, the Espionage Act was used during the Pentagon Papers, even though we think about that as a First Amendment decision. They actually went after the Post of the Times using the Espionage Act instead of to counter the First Amendment argument of publishing the Pentagon Papers. Yeah, I'll always remember that from class. Temperature is going to be in the low 90s today. A little bit more cloud cover than what we've had. Still going to be windy and humid, however, and feeling about in between 97 and 99 this afternoon. Up and away we go on the thermometer all the way into the mid-90s, 94 and 95 for Friday and Saturday.
That's a look at our top news stories. Coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News, UPS unveils its new battery-powered vehicle. Plus, people who went to Yellowstone were asked to leave due to Mother Nature's wrath. This makes us wonder, has Mother Nature ever ruined your travel plans? We'll let you weigh in. We'll be right back. In Consumer Watch this morning, today the Federal Reserve could announce its biggest interest rate hike since 1994. The U.S. Central Bank is using rate increases in hopes of taming nearly 4-decade high inflation. If the Fed raises target rates by as much as 0.75 of a percentage point, the move would put even more pressure on Americans who rely on credit cards and take out home and car loans. After today's expected hike, the Fed will likely forecast additional ones through the end of the year. Fisher-Price and the Consumer Product Safety Commission issued a warning about the company's infant to toddler and newborn to toddler rockers after at least 13 babies died between 2009 and 2021. This is not a recall, but parents are advised the rockers should never be used for sleep. Infants should never be unsupervised or unrestrained. UPS unveils this new battery-powered four-wheel vehicle in New York as a more efficient way to get packages around some of the world's most congested cities. UPS is calling the vehicles eQuade. The shipping giant says it wants to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. That's it for Consumer Watch. Let's go over to Michael for our Something to Talk About.
This morning on the KOAM News Now Instapoll and our Facebook page, Mother Nature's wrath. A statewide disaster declared in Montana as the Yellowstone River swells to historic levels, the highest seen in more than a century. The flood water so powerful, pulling a whole house into its current. You've got relentless rain, rapid snow melt equaling up to 2 to 3 months worth of precipitation, saturating the park in just 3 days. So now you've got catastrophic flooding across the region that spans the Yellowstone National Park and the Montana-Wyoming state line. More than 10,000 visitors have now fled the park, and now record-breaking heat wave baking the same region. Our question for you this morning: has Mother Nature ever ruined your travel plans? Right now, 46% of you say yes, but 54% say you've been able to skirt out of her way and have never run into any trouble. Each and every morning, a couple ways to connect. You can go straight to the poll, KOAMNewsNow.com/vote. You can also connect to us via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now. Come back, celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, but first, off to New York. Time to check in with Nate.
I'm Nate Burleson. Coming up on CBS Mornings, Emmy Award-winning actress Samira Wiley will be with us. We'll talk about the documentary, The Gratitude Project, that she co-produced. That's coming up on CBS Mornings.
We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Amanda Ferris. Lance Corporal Ferris served in the Marines from 2002 to 2007. She served in Okinawa, Japan, and at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Native of Joplin, Missouri, we thank you, today's four-state hero, Amanda Ferris.
The birthday list begins with Jump, Jump, Jumperoo, Waylon John Humble. You can tell, when he gets into that thing, I bet it is nonstop action right there. I remember when my kids had that, Waylon. A very happy first birthday to you with love from Nana. And Waylon is jumping around in Weir.
All right. In Frontenac, Adeline Richardson is 7 strong this year. Looks like she's ready to go to a Hawaiian party.
In Pittsburgh, Landon Prophet. Oh, I'm guessing that was a gapper. That's got two-bagger written all over it right there. Look at him locked in. Tell you what, if I'm on the mound and I see that staring at me, I'm thinking about intentionally walking you, man. Especially when you're cocking the leg up like that. I'm afraid it's coming right back at me. Landon, a great stance and a happy 12th birthday to you in Pittsburgh.
All right. And the birthday list goes on. We've got Fonda Jackson celebrating in Columbus today. Herschel Meister turns 82 in Carthage. And Lance King, happy birthday to you in the bus.
I got to take the fall on this last one. I think yesterday I called David and Shani. I think I called them Hunley. That's my fault. It's Henley. David and Shani, I apologize. I do want to wish you a happy 49th anniversary once again. And once again, that is my bad. A very, very happy anniversary, 49 years, that is amazing. And the Henleys, they are in Joplin. Happy birthday and happy anniversary to all. That's where you can send into birthdays at KOAMTV.com. You can also go to our website, KOAMNewsNow.com. Here's Tanya Bach with a very important birthday announcement.
That's right, you can be a part of the KOAM Birthday Club. Go into our website and sign up, and once you do, you'll get deals from local businesses on your birthday. Just go to KOAMnewsnow.com and sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today.
Coming up when the KOAM Morning News transitions over to Fox 14, we're going to meet World War II veterans, part of a unit that was mostly second-generation Japanese Americans during a time when they faced extreme distrust. Now these heroes getting the honors they deserve. Their incredible ceremony when we switch over to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. One more birthday to pass along. This dude knows who he is. He's a teenager now. I love you, buddy. I absolutely love you, and you know that. And I'll catch up with you here in a little bit. You and I go goof around today. Temperatures ranging in between 77 and, well, it's 75 still in Monette, and about 80, 81 degrees. So here we go. Once again, it'll be our fourth consecutive day as we reach up into the 90s later on. A little bit more cloud cover than what we've had past couple of days. The wind still going to be problematic along with the humidity, as we'll go, go ahead and call it the oppressive category. Any rain that we do see, limited lightning risk for tonight into tomorrow north of Highway 54. Very sporadic and quick hitting, not really going to develop into anything severe. Majority of the 4 states remaining dry, and then up we go into the mid-90s by the time we get to the weekend. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Authorities stopped their search for a man missing at the Grand Falls in Joplin. The search began shortly after 5 on Tuesday afternoon. Authorities received a report that a man went over the falls and did not resurface. Reddings Mill and Neosho Water Rescue provided support in that area. And further downstream, Galena, Kansas Water Rescue entered the water near Shimmerhorn Park in Cherokee County. Joplin Fire Deputy Chief Andy Nimmo says they called off the search Tuesday night because the water was swift and dangerous. He asked everyone to avoid the area. The search will resume sometime this morning under the direction of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Berry County, Missouri Sheriff's Department reports authorities have captured Lance Stevens, the last of 3 men who broke out of the Berry County Jail earlier this month. He was captured in San Antonio, Texas. Authorities had previously captured the other 2 escapees, Christopher Blevins, caught near Casper, Wyoming, and Matthew Crawford, found in Springfield. Police in Aurora, Missouri investigate the death of a couple. The police chief says a neighbor got a call asking him to call 911 for help. When officers arrived at the home at 1642 Oak Drive, they found the man and woman both dead from gunshot wounds. Authorities say there is no threat to the public. With this intense heat, it's important to remember to stay safe from heat exhaustion. Symptoms include heavy sweating, cold, pale and clammy skin, and muscle cramps. Experts say you should get medical help right away if there is vomiting. If symptoms get worse or last longer than an hour, or if confusion develops, you can find a list of area cooling centers on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
You know, Tanya, with that persistent heat, and that's a great point you just brought up with the heavy sweating and whatnot, another telltale sign to look for, especially in young kids and whatnot. You know, normally in this type of weather, you're going to walk outside, you're going to start sweating. Pay attention to little kids, and if you notice they are not sweating, sometimes because of the humidity, your body will have a hard time breaking a sweat. That is another reason to go back inside, the lack of sweat. We all know normal sweat for this weather is. So watch out for little kids there when they do not sweat, because that's very problematic for them. Weather trend for today, we're going to go low 90s, and then we just keep on warming up to the mid 90s by the time we get to Father's Day weekend. Remember those shots for rain on the 7-day forecast for tonight into tomorrow morning, very isolated north of Highway 54.
All right.
Cooling
It's
centers,
summer.
cooling
It's
centers,
summer.
KOAMnewsnow.com.
Yes, we have a list of them for the communities who do have them. I think.
Yes.
All right, well, coming up today at noon, we're making Dad's beer marinated steak in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Morning news continues on KOAM. CBS Mornings is next. Serena Williams is playing at Wimbledon after a year away from competition. Coming up, how the former world #1 player's trying to prove herself again. It's hard to believe Serena's 40 years old. My goodness.
Or you can switch on over with us on Fox 14, where your only local morning news continues. And this morning, Volkswagen looks to outsell Tesla in electric cars.
Plus, a look at a new alopecia treatment. All that when we transition over to Fox 14. Wraps it up for this Wednesday edition. Try to stay cool. Be safe. We'll do this all again tomorrow morning.
And we're going to do it again today at noon.